My girlfriend's been watching a lot of these classic rom-coms lately, and The Wedding Planner is one of the last ones she saw, and it got me thinking about something we talked about this weekend about relationships and just healthy relationships as a whole. This past weekend we were sitting at brunch and we started talking about this couple that we know who has this very movie-esque relationship, but it's not necessarily the healthiest relationship. And it's really hard to grasp what I mean by this, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go home right now and I'll watch the last rom-com we watched, which happened to be The Wedding Planner, and it just proved my point exactly. Now, The Wedding Planner is not a bad movie by any means. I'm not gonna sit here and bash our rom-coms because I actually enjoy them myself, but what I do hate about them is the story that they've always spewed about how you find love and all the effort goes into finding the relationship, but then afterwards, you don't see any of it. I mean, it feels like every single rom-com or even Disney movie I've seen, they fall in love and then that's it, the credits roll. And The Wedding Planner was the perfect example. You know, they find each other in the park, they dance, they kiss, and then roll the credits. Now, these stories are great for movies, but they're terrible influences on us when it comes to love. We always sit here and think that we're gonna work so hard to find the relationship, everything's magical, and then that's it. We do all this work, and then once you have the relationship, everything's just perfect. You never have to work towards anything again. But a lot of relationships fail because of this exact thing, because we all expect the magic to just last forever, but the reality is, the work has to be there no matter what. The honeymoon phase that you're in right now is going to fizzle out at some point, and you have to work past that. And unfortunately, it seems like a lot of people think once you get in the relationship, the work ends, and so when the work has to keep going, they just give up. So for obvious reasons, we all want to find love. Like, we watch these movies, we watch TV, and we think, damn, that looks good, because it does look good. Those relationships look like they're fantastic. Everybody's happy. You have somebody chasing somebody at the airport, you get a ring, you get a crown, everybody's happy. It's just the ideal relationship. Why wouldn't we want that? I think we end up believing this stuff and eating it up more out of ignorance. That we want that so bad that we're willing to just see past the fact that nobody's perfect. The hardest pill to swallow is that there is no perfect relationship. Behind every closed door, there's gonna be secrets, there's gonna be arguments, there's gonna be fights. There's no real perfect example of a relationship. It's so easy to get frustrated with it too, because you see other relationships that actually appear to be perfect. I mean, all the shitty relationships I've been in, I'd always look at my friends that seem to be in a much better relationship, and I thought to myself, damn, they're perfect. They hit the jackpot. He's got the perfect girlfriend, she's got the perfect boyfriend. Why can't I have that? No matter how hard you wish on that shooting star, no matter how many coins you throw in that wishing well, you're not gonna get the perfect person just by sitting there waiting. You're not gonna get anything by just waiting. You have to put in effort. It's never gonna be enough just to want a healthy relationship. You gotta put in the work for it. You gotta understand that support, open communication, understanding, laughter, all those things have to outweigh the cons of that relationship in order for it to be successful. Damn bugs, man. All right, so my favorite analogy for a relationship is comparing a relationship to a garden. And I know this isn't necessarily a garden, but it's still green, there's trees, there's the plants. It's close enough, right? Just get over it. Now, it may seem like apples or oranges, but I do think there's a lot of people that put in the same amount of effort as planting a flower as they do with their relationships. This isn't cutting it, huh? This isn't, I need to find a garden. This isn't the same without a garden. I can't sit here and talk about flowers and gardens and not be in a garden. All right, give me one sec. Excuse me, do you have any friends around here? Like a little garden, a little place you guys hang out? No? Dude, do any of you guys know where I can find a garden? Actually, you know what? I think these are weeds. I think I just asked weeds if they knew where flowers were. All right, this is about as good as it's gonna get on short notice. I am literally one trip away from Lowe's from being on the no DIY list. The botanical garden costs money, so I drove around for as long as I could and I found this little flower back there. So this is like the smallest possible garden in the city of Austin, and this is where I'm at. So just know I'm at a garden. All right, so I compare relationships to gardens and plants because we all have at least one story where we went out, we got excited, bought a plant, watched it die. And it's the same thing with a lot of relationships. I remember the first time I went out and bought a plant for my desk at work. I went out, looked all around, I was super excited. I was looking for the perfect flower. I was looking up all the research on how to take care of it, do this or that. Got the flower, took it to work, lasted maybe about 2 weeks, it was dead. Now the reason this happened is because I was more caught up with the idea of having a plant, having the flower to show off to all my friends at work, all my coworkers. I was so focused on that I completely forgot about the work it took to have a flower. And plants are pretty straightforward. When you neglect to give them water, sunlight, the stuff that they need, they're gonna die. Now thankfully that's not the case for people. It's not like you forget to love them, they just die, but the relationship is something that can die out. It's something that can dwindle because you're not giving it the attention you were giving it when you were so excited about having a relationship. You get so caught up in the idea of having a relationship, showing all your friends that you're in a great relationship, and just being in the relationship that you forget that it takes effort. Slowly over time, it just becomes more effort than you were expecting. You realize that you weren't really ready to have that plant. You weren't ready for that relationship. You were just so caught up in the idea of having it. Now that it's here, you can't keep up with it. Relationships are fantastic, especially if you find the right person for you, but if you want that happily ever after thing we see in all the movies, you gotta put in the right effort. Otherwise, it's gonna die out like that flower I had on my desk. I think the biggest takeaway here is that the effort goes way beyond just the initial excitement of having a relationship. It goes beyond having that initial excitement of buying yourself a flower. The thing is, healthy relationships take work, but that work is worth it. That work is fun. It's what builds the relationship. It's what makes you like your partner more and more each and every day. And I think a lot of us don't want to believe this, so we blame it on our partners, we blame it on our trauma, we blame it on our past, and we don't want to accept the fact that maybe we're just not ready for that work. Maybe we don't know what's involved in the relationship. So with that being said, let's go over some of the work you can expect out of a healthy relationship. Hi, yeah, can I get one ticket for a healthy relationship, please? Oh, no, you don't have that? Damn, all right, is there like a superhero movie out or something? Well, if you can't buy a ticket for a healthy relationship, how are you supposed to get one? Well, here's a little secret for you. If you want a good relationship, you gotta work for it. Believe it or not, a healthy relationship actually starts long before the relationship. The relationship can't be healthy if you yourself aren't healthy. And what I mean by this is you can't jump into a relationship if you're not ready for a relationship. If you're still recovering from a bad relationship, if you're still recovering from trauma, you still have things you need to work on yourself. You've got to take care of that stuff before you jump into a relationship, because you can't expect somebody to fix you. Okay, so you know what? Maybe you are ready. Maybe you have everything figured out. You feel ready or feel confident. You want to get in that relationship. You got it. But once you get in it, what are you supposed to do? Now, there's so many great pieces of advice when it comes to having a healthy relationship, but because you guys don't have 45 minutes for me to have like a whole TED talk about this, I'm gonna give you guys a few of the most important ones that I've learned. I think the single-handedly most important thing I've learned from many failed relationships is that it takes two people to have a healthy relationship. You ever heard that saying, it takes two to tango? Okay, that was probably closer to salsa. I have no idea how to tango, but needless to say, no matter how much effort one person puts into the relationship, if the other person is not reciprocating that exact amount of effort, it's not gonna go anywhere. Now, I was the type of person when my relationship was going south, I'd sit there and ask myself, how can I change my partner? How can I make them fit my needs? Like, how am I going to make them shift to make this relationship work? And yes, obviously that's narcissistic and selfish, and I've learned from that, but there's a lot of us that think that way. I think a lot of us assume if we put enough effort into changing our partner that they're going to be more willing to change and to fit the needs of us. But really, that's a lot to ask from somebody. I mean, I know I don't want to change. If someone's like, hey man, you can't skate, you can't film YouTube videos, you can't do any of the stuff you like anymore, I don't think we'd be in a relationship very long. And I think one of the biggest pieces of advice I've gotten from somebody is that change needs some sort of internal motivation. No matter how much external motivation you have, the person that needs to change or the person that you're trying to change has to want to change themselves, otherwise they're not going to. Now, I think the most important thing at the end of the day is you don't necessarily need anyone to change in the relationship. You just need both parties to be willing to put in the same amount of effort, but on top of that, you need to be willing to communicate. Even if it's just one person in the relationship that's not willing to do either of those things, it's going to be a failed relationship long term. Now, I'm not saying you need to dump anybody necessarily. I'm just saying I've been in that position before. Just make sure you keep your eyes open and understand what red flags you need to look out for long-term relationships. Hi, buddy. What's up? How did daddy go home? I'll tell you how dad got home. Sometimes I don't feel like filming transition shots, so here I am. I'm back home in my apartment where we're gonna close up this video. Cause sometimes, honestly, like behind the scenes on YouTube, you gotta film all the stuff of you driving and setting up the camera and going back. And honestly, there's a lot of times where I just don't feel like doing that. So welcome back to my apartment, my still empty office that we need to finish decorating. Now, I think I got my point across pretty well in this video, but there is one more thing that I think I need to throw in here. And honestly, I wish I'd said it earlier, because this might be the most important thing for anybody in any relationship to know. I think one of the biggest problems I've seen or experienced when people talk about having a healthy relationship is there's this weird stigma that healthy relationships require fighting and pain and just like extra work that's not necessary. And to kind of give you guys a better idea of what I'm talking about, there's several different examples of this. And the first one being, right now in my current relationship with Sophia, the first month in, people are like, oh, have you had your first fight? Have you guys fought yet? Like, what do your fights look like? And to me, that's always been so weird. And in my previous relationships, there was people that would be like, hey, fighting is just a part of relationships. Like, relationships are always going to be this hard. And then finally one day I thought to myself, that doesn't make sense. Why do we think that? And you know what? I think there's several different reasons for that. The first being we see it in the movies. Like I said earlier, we have all these over dramatized movies that are like, oh, like slap the guy, yell at each other, like win him back. Like, it's so weird to me. And I think the other one is more of a personal thing, depending on how you grew up. Obviously, if you grew up around a traumatic situation, you know, maybe you didn't have anybody to look up to. Like, I got lucky in that sense that my parents never fought. I don't think I've ever seen my parents fight once, and I thank them for that. But there's a lot of other people that grew up watching their parents fight and watching other people in their lives fight. So we all kind of assume that a good relationship needs to have some sort of fighting or heartache or pain or some kind of suffering in it, because that's just what we've been taught. Now, I think the most important thing to understand about this is that this stuff may be inevitable. Like, there's gonna be an argument. You guys can't agree on everything. I'm not saying if you guys fight to break up, but what I'm saying is that understand that the fighting, the arguing, the crying, like that doesn't necessarily mean you're working on the relationship. Oftentimes, and especially in my experiences, those are usually a sign of something much worse. Now, if it's something that happens every once in a while, you may be able to work through that, but if it's something that constantly happens, you guys might be forcing yourself into something that's not really meant to be. The thing I'm trying to say here is that we don't have to fight, we don't have to argue. Like, that's not what defines a relationship. I don't know what the deal is with like, oh, you have to fight, like that's just part of being in a relationship. Whoever taught us that, I hate you so much. But you know what? We're gonna move past that. I think it's time for us to move past that. We need to leave those ideas in the past, because really, now that I'm in a healthy relationship with Sophia, I actually get to compare what a relationship should be like with my previous one. And I'm not saying it's anybody's fault, because believe me, there's a lot of things I had to work on. Like, I'm not saying I was the perfect boyfriend. Like, I had a lot of toxic traits I had to work on in order to get to where I'm at now. But the thing is, you gotta make sure that you work to get past that. If you keep telling yourself, oh, that's just part of a relationship, oh, we're gonna fight, oh, this is just what you can expect, you're gonna just keep finding yourself in bad situations, bad relationships, because you can't have a healthy relationship with that mindset. So I really do hate to burst your bubble about the whole happily ever after thing in movies being false. I'm not saying you can't be happy. Like, there are happily ever afters. It's just not as simple as they make in the movies. It's not just like I show up at your doorstep and say, hey baby, I don't know, I don't even know what they even say in those movies. They're just so cheesy. But understand that it's never gonna be enough just to want a healthy relationship. I think everybody in the world wants a healthy relationship. Nobody wakes up and says, man, I wanna be treated like shit today. But just understand that there's a lot of work that goes into it, and it's constant work. It's something that doesn't stop, and that's something you have to be willing to take on when you join into a healthy relationship. But that's it. That's all I got for you guys today. So thank you so much for watching. Sorry I got a little bit lazy and just chilled in the apartment for the end of the video. But that's kind of just my thing now, it seems like. But thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully I got some other good stuff coming up soon. I'm still exploring Austin. I'm still figuring out where to film and all that good stuff. But thank you guys. I love every single one of you guys. I will see you next video.